Patagonia and it's snowing and cold. So I might be dodging some shadows and just, dance with me if you think it's weird. But I'm really excited to jump into this conversation today. We got folks calling from Uganda, Africa, Santa Cruz, California, Kenya, North Carolina, Texas, Kentucky, Connecticut, Canada representing, Boston, Atlanta. Awesome. So keep dropping in the chat where you all are calling from. It's really nice to see where you are in the world. And I know that we've got a lot to cover today, so I'll quickly go through some housekeeping guidelines just so that we all feel comfortable and confident in this next hour. So just, want to start by saying thanks for joining us today. Lots of crazy things going on in the world. You could be doing anything else with your time, but you're deciding to be with us for the hour. Whether you're here live with us or whether you're rewatching this, we know that this is clearly an important conversation for you. So if you're here live, we'd love for you to participate in a number of ways. You can turn on your cameras if you feel called to do so. You can also make use of the chat box, writing your own tips and tricks that you want to share, your own resources. Definitely want to make sure that you all use the chat box to network, especially given today's conversation and theme today. So be sure to use the chat, throughout this conversation today. Now, if anyone at any point would like to hop off mute to ask a question or voice a reflection, just give me a cue by writing to me either privately or in the public chat. You can also raise your emoji hand. That will let me know you'd like to hop off mute. And as time allows, I'll give you permission to do so. Otherwise, just keep writing in the chat. Now, if you do hop off of mute at any point, you will be featured in our live recording as this is being recorded. And if you signed up for this conversation, be looking out for a rewatch email. That email will include a link to this recorded chat, as well as any resources that our guest speaker might bring up throughout the hour. So be looking out for that rewatch email. And if anyone has any sensitive information and you prefer to be kept anonymous, just write me privately. You can find me in the chat under Mariella Marie. Write to me privately there, and I will raise your question or your reflection and keep you anonymous. And the last thing I'll say is we'd love for you to follow Power to Fly on socials and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can keep up with all the great chats we've got in store. I see the chat box is already getting on fire here, so I appreciate you all using the chat. Now, before I pass the mic to our guest speaker, I'll just take a couple seconds to introduce myself. So I really love reflecting on how we can deepen our emotional intelligence at work, at home, and in our communities. So I will try to reflect on that because I know some of you all are interested in these, as they call them, soft skills. I like to call them power skills or essential skills. So I might try to see how we can, put that into how we share ourselves in our networks here. Otherwise, happy to connect on LinkedIn, or you can support the projects that I'm working on at thepositiveforceteam.org, also producing a really cool podcast for Grow Dialogue. And I invite you all to support me there as well. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to our guest speaker, Diana, who's calling from Canada today. Let us know a little bit about yourself, why you do what you do, and what you're excited to share with us today, Diana.
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you so much, Mariella, for moderating this and for having me at Power to Fly here. I am so delighted and excited to be here. If you're here, say hello here. Let us know where you are tuning in from. So a little bit about me. I'm Diana YK Chan. I'm based here in Markham, Ontario, which is just north of Toronto, Ontario here in Canada. And I've been recognized as a LinkedIn top voice in career and job search for 2022 this year. I've also recently been a LinkedIn learning instructor where my latest news course is on presenting with confidence. I'm a global speaker and executive career and confidence coach where I'm known for helping you differentiate your personal brand, developing great relationships, and delivering your messages with confidence. I'm a power user on LinkedIn. I've been on since 2004, a long, long time ago, and started creating content back in 2013. And really over the last several years, since 2018, that's when I started creating video content. And I post a variety of content, whether it's video content, text posts. I love adding images as well. Something that really, that I learned last year from using LinkedIn and building my brand is through storytelling, telling more about my story of who I am. So a little bit more personal side of me besides being a coach and speaker. I'm a mom of two. I have two young boys who are 5 and 7, and they're just full of energy and joy. And they always remind me of the importance of really staying present and having fun. And that's what I try to bring in through my content here. So today, what I'm hoping to achieve in today's talk here, because I know we have a lot of questions who came in, and perhaps we can move to the next slide, is 3 areas I want to cover today. Is number one is really talking through how to make a great impression on LinkedIn. So this is really your LinkedIn profile. I really believe that's the fundamentals first, is really nailing your profile. That's the first step. The second step is really how to build your brand and credibility and visibility on LinkedIn to generate opportunities. So whether you are a job seeker, entrepreneur, freelancer, or a speaker and coach where you want to generate opportunities, I'm going to talk about from that perspective as well. And then lastly, is that if you want to really take it up a notch, is really how to start creating great content that really resonates with your audience, that builds relationships, your network, and get more opportunities. So if you are excited, type in a +1. Let me know whether you're excited here. If you're excited, type in a +1. We see a great audience here already from all over the world. And what I want to take a moment to do before we dive into the questions, Mariella, is I want to find a little bit about my audience here of a bit of like, why are you on LinkedIn, right? Why are you on LinkedIn? So type in a 1 if you are a job seeker looking to get more opportunities. 1 if you're a job seeker looking to get more opportunities. Type in a 2 if you are an entrepreneur, a freelancer, or you have your own business and looking to generate more leads. Okay, so that's number 2. And then type in a 3 if you're just on LinkedIn that you want to build your brand in general. You want to build your brand and network. Okay, so
all right.
let us know.
Yes, I'm going to ask you to repeat that one more time. So it looks like we got lots of 1s and lots of 3s already, but can you just give us a reminder? 1, 2, and 3 represent? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, why you're on LinkedIn. Is it number 1, you're a job seeker, you want to get a job, or number 2 is that you're an entrepreneur, freelancer looking to get more leads and opportunities there, or number 3, you want to use LinkedIn to build your brand and network. So more general there.
Looks like we got mostly 1s and 3s, couple of 2s.
Okay, 1s and 3s. Okay, so that's great to know. Amazing, amazing. So this is great. We're going to be able to covering a little bit of those different aspects of brand building, content creation, and getting new opportunities. And I want to share a little bit about my background too. I used to be a recruiter. I was a former recruiter for Google Canada here 10 years ago. And that's how my business launched, was really about finding the top talent using LinkedIn. So I've seen millions of LinkedIn profiles, so you can ask me anything related about just even what recruiters look for. I've also used LinkedIn as an agency recruiter as well, external recruiter looking for different employers there. And then I've also used it as a business owner and also supporting my clients in building LinkedIn. So I have various perspectives I'm sharing on building your brand on LinkedIn.
I love that. So whether you dropped a 1 or 2 or 3, Diana has all the wisdom and info to share today. So I'm happy that, you can cover all facets of, how we can show up, be ourselves, be authentic, storytell. I love that you're bringing storytelling into this conversation as well. So just want to remind folks, because I see some questions already in the chat. They're really excited. They already want to receive this video. So don't worry, you're going to get a rewatch email with the link to this recorded video, as well as any resources that Diana might bring up. So let's start with this first question here. And if you sent this question, if you hear your questions come up throughout the hour, just let us know you're here. We just want to make sure that we cover your question. And then if you don't hear your question come up, or you have a question come to mind in the moment, again, use the chat box to drop any last minute questions, any of your own reflections as well in the chat. I want to empower you all to use the chat today. All right, so let's get kicked off with some personal branding questions here. So this question reads, how important is it to build our brand? And what are the steps to start building it effectively?
Oh, such a great question. I love this kickoff question. So first of all, how important it is. Like, honestly, I think it's very, very important. Personal branding, it really represents you. One of the analogy I always use is personal branding is like wedding planning. It really represents of who you are. And it's also an extension of how you want people to remember you, to feel you, to experience you as well. So that's why personal branding is important. And it's important because 1, it's going to help you be more memorable. Number 2, it's going to also help you become more marketable. So what that translates to is when you're more memorable and remarkable, you get more opportunities. It also helps you, I call it increasing your market value, meaning making more money as well when you have a strong personal brand. So that's really the foundation of why it's important. So from a step standpoint, what can we do to get started? Because this talk is really specifically on LinkedIn, I'm going to really focus on that. The number 1 step I would say, first of all, is you have to know yourself. You have to know yourself. So this is what I call the whole clarity piece of knowing yourself, of what you stand for. So a few exercises that you can do is number one is identifying your strengths. Like, what are you really good at? Number two is you can send out a perception survey to your colleagues, friends, and ask them what words would they use to describe you? What value do you bring? What are you known for? What's your communication style? The purpose of this whole exercise is really getting to know yourself and really think about, like, what are those words to describe you? How you want people to experience you? Okay, so that's the first piece, is knowing yourself. And then the next step then is from there is really thinking about knowing your audience, right? For LinkedIn, this is why I asked, like, what are you using it for? Are you looking to get job opportunities or get new leads? What is it? Really understanding what is the purpose of LinkedIn, because that's going to translate or influence the way you're going to position yourself and market yourself there, right? So for those who are job seekers, you really want to think it from an employer standpoint, a recruiter standpoint of what do they care about? Right? So knowing that audience of what are they looking for there? What do they search for? And then from there, the third step then is crafting your profile, optimizing your LinkedIn profile there. Those are the three basic steps. And we can go more into the optimizing piece afterwards, Mariella, but these are the fundamental steps. First is knowing yourself, knowing your audience, and then optimizing your profile to start building your brand there.
I love that. I love that. And I mean, you're already just like diving in deep here at the beginning, which I love. And I think you're pretty much covering, all the different perspectives that we have here on the call today. Lots of folks dropped 1s, 3s, and 2s as well. So thank you so much for giving this, high level overview. I have a follow-up question that, I hope that it can expand the first question here. So the impact that our brand should have on our network is what this question reads. So maybe if you'd like to dive a little deeper there. So what is the impact that our brand should have on our network is the question.
Yeah, I like that question. So the impact, right? Really, the impact is you want to be known for your domain area of expertise, right? If your goal is to generate more opportunities, you want to be known in that domain. So as an example, for me, what my main domain is, I specialize in career transitions, career pivots for mid to senior level professionals, right? Like, that's very clear that I talk a lot about that, which is career transitions. And within that, what are those subdomains expertise I want to be known for, which I talk more about, which is LinkedIn, personal branding, networking, interviews, salary negotiation. These are all the topics I want to be known for. And so from there, I want to make sure I'm sprinkling essentially either these keywords in my profile and making sure the content I create or the videos that I create highlight that. And so the goal, the impact here is, like, the more you talk about it, the more people are going to remember you. Right? Like that's really part of the goal here, is what do you really want to be known for so that people can think of you for those opportunities. So I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example here. This year, like, I know that I wanted to do more global speaking opportunities. I've been speaking for a long time, but I knew I wanted to take it to a global level. So I also set my intention that part of it, of branding here, is you got to start branding yourself that way. So meaning I start branding myself as a global speaker. By doing that, I attracted an opportunity with the UN. I did 2 talks with the UN this year, in March and in April, and it was a global audience. Like, it was one of the most global audience I've ever had. Right? And the topics I talked about, I had 2 topics. One was on how to build trust and rapport in interviews, which is the domain. And the other was around pitching yourself with confidence, that I did on International Women's Day. And so my point here is that you first need to get clear of what you want to be known for and position yourself. This is like, if you want, for those who want to make career pivots, who want to track certain opportunities, you got to start positioning yourself that way and start talking more about it. And that's the impact of the type of opportunities that you can get. And because of that talk of pitching yourself with confidence, it led me to another opportunity to become a LinkedIn instructor on creating my first LinkedIn course on presenting with confidence, because I talked about pitching yourself with confidence. You see that, like, how things are linked together there?
Absolutely. I mean, people are applauding you in the chat. It's really beautiful to hear, your lived experience and how you were able to navigate, how do I want to, share my story, and start really from the root of it as well. If I can bring some emotional intelligence into this conversation, the self-awareness piece, right? So, instead of being bombarded with all the things that people are doing on social media, which can be very overwhelming, starting from within, right? So just turning everything off, turning the internet off, going into your room or going outside and figuring out like, what do I want to share? How do I want to share my voice? Where do I want, like, who do I want to connect with? What is the limit? Are there any limits? And I love that you're bringing that to the forefront here. And speaking of, the fact that it can be overwhelming for some folks, especially for people who might consider themselves more introverts, let's say, I would love to lean into this next question here. So what are some common mistakes that we make at the moment of building our brand?
That's a good question. What are some of those common mistakes? So I would say a few things, right? Because the first step is we got to define it, right? Like getting clear on what our brand is. The second step around it is really around living your brand. And I feel like the common mistake is like, lack of actually owning your brand, living your brand, promoting your brand, like talking about your brand. Part of, because sometimes it may feel hard and you feel like I'm talking too much about myself there. So I think there's sometimes like that lack of owning your own brand. And the other is around that lack of consistency, especially if you're trying to build your expertise of what you want to be known for, is are you talking enough about it where you can really build that momentum where you're really known for it there. So those are the two common mistakes, I would say. I see people, they may just write about it, like first, like they find these are my keywords, but are you really living and breathing it out there? And this is where I would say it becomes tricky, but part of it's like, I think if you think of personal branding as part of an extension of you, you can make it fun. So I'll use just an example too. If personal branding is how you want people to experience you, right? A simple way of thinking about it is how do you want to show up on a daily basis? Right? How do you want to show up? So for me, I know some of the keywords people always describe me is like energetic, passionate, enthusiastic. And so the way I show up on camera or the way I communicate my content, I want to have that energetic, empowering tone of voice. So I want to make sure I'm living it and breathing it on a daily basis as well. And that's still staying true to authentic me of who I am.
I love that, right? Because it's like, if I see you, I was basically raised in a beauty salon and kind of like always like to be on stage and dancing and things like that. So I don't have a problem with, showing myself like that. But I know that a lot of people, I love to bring in the introverts on the call, because especially with working remotely and, virtual meetings and virtual interviews and all this, it can be pretty, intense for some folks. So I always like to make sure I'm including them in the conversation. And I love that you're saying, it's not one size fits all. Diana is Diana. You don't have to be who Diana is. And actually you can't. So, to a point where, if you are feeling like you're not being your authentic self, to make sure that you are staying true to yourself throughout, how you're presenting, and how you want people to experience you. I love that you're using that. How do you want people to experience you?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get into profile.
Yes. Yeah. I just want to point out something, because that question about the introvert piece, I've had that before. And I want to point out there, you don't need to be an extrovert in order to have a great brand. Okay, I think that's very, very important, because a lot of times I have introverts ask me, well, I'm not loud like you. I'm not energetic like you. I don't want to put myself. The point here is you don't have to be an extrovert to have a great brand. You can still do in your own way. Like I have one of my buddies, Austin Balsack, he has over 1 million followers on LinkedIn. He's an introvert. He's very clear. He doesn't like doing videos. He's more a text person. So the way he shows his brand is through more writing. That's part of his personality. And he talks about that. He doesn't want to be Instagram, doesn't want to be on TikTok. That's just not who he is. So the message here is you do you. It doesn't matter whether you're an introvert, extrovert, you can still have a great brand. Okay. I want to be really, really clear here.
I love that. And actually, I want to just dive in there a little deeper if you have any more tips, because someone wrote in the chat, Mary wrote, what are tips for introverts to be online or on social media? And you're getting there I love that you're saying write more if you don't feel called to, be on video more, or if you don't, if you can't be this, hyper bubbly person that some folks, we see that. I think, I don't know if the algorithm pulls those people more in our feeds. But for this question that Mary writes here, would you like to give any more tips specifically for introverts?
Yeah. So to me, this goes back to what are your strengths, right? What gives you energy? What gives you joy as well, right? Like what are your strengths and what do you enjoy doing as well, right? So let's just use an example as we talk later about networking as well. For some, they may like to network in big groups. For some, like the introvert, they just may like to have one-on-one conversations, right? So simple things could be having like DM conversations, could be a simple way to connect with people versus feeling that you have to have like this group type of conversation there. So I think a big part is doing analysis of what gives me energy, what am I good at, what do I enjoy doing more of, what depletes my energy, and I don't want to do that. Like even for me, I'll tell you, like I enjoy speaking more than writing. So if you get me to write a whole long article of tips on LinkedIn, it's much harder for me than getting me to do an hour talk with you here.
I can relate. I feel like I'm in the same boat. But I also have this. So I'm raised between California and Georgia before I came to Argentina. And when I was living in Los Angeles as a performance artist and as a director and writer, I didn't start off as a writer, but I began to nurture my writer voice when I saw that it was becoming a little oversaturated with, my type of person, let's say. And I wanted to see if there was like another angle that I could get. So, I love that you're saying, I can write, but it's, it's not my strength and it might take me a little longer. And then also with all the important like keywords and things that are coming up, especially within LinkedIn and things like that, it's almost inevitable to not write. Like I know that you're saying it's not your strength, but I've seen you write before, and I love, it's concise, it's to the point, and you get, the message out clearly. So I appreciate you leaning into that.
Yeah. And so what you're talking about here is also knowing your style as well. This is a little bit further knowing your style. So for me, like even just for those, like English was not my first language. Like I moved to Canada here when I was 16 on my own. And so a lot of my writing, or even like you see a lot of my content, it is more concise, it's shorter, simple language. I love using formulas as well, because that's how I learned English growing up there. So this is part of branding, to be honest with you, is because you're finding your style that's going to resonate with your audience there. Like I love coming up with formulas. Like as an example, my Presenting with Confidence course is I use the confidence letters as a tip for each strategy I want to teach about presenting with confidence. And that's my creative way. That's what I'm known for. Like if you look at a lot of my training, I'm often known for that. That's my style there. And that's branding. This is what branding is about, is to be memorable, is to you owning your own unique style that works for you.
And it's working clearly. We got folks writing in the chat saying they love reading your work, and also your emails are very clear and to the point. And actually, this is a great moment to highlight how can folks connect with you, or tune into your work when this conversation ends. I'm sure they want to hear more about you because we can't do it all in an hour. So how should people reach out?
Yeah, great question. So a few ways. Number one is definitely join my mailing list on my website at myremarkability.com. I have some free resources on like interviews, networking, or making a career move, all of that. It's in my resources page there. Number two is definitely follow me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. And then there's a few other channels that I'm active on with a lot of free training is my YouTube channel and Instagram, where I'm starting to do more reels and behind the scenes work that I'm showcasing there.
Awesome. Well, you got supporters here. And actually, this is a great invitation now that Diana is saying connect with her. I would love to open the invitation for folks who are here live with us to drop your LinkedIns or your preferred ways of connecting in the chat. Go ahead and drop those in now. And you've got, a little over 30 minutes to save some of these LinkedIns. And I definitely encourage you all to reach out meaningfully, try to make some intentional connections. And I'm sure that Diana can give us all the tips in just a few moments on how to do that. But first, I'd love to dive into profile optimization. So this next question reads, what should we take into consideration to create a great first impression with our LinkedIn profile?
Ooh, great questions here. Okay. I actually prepared some slides. I don't know if that would be helpful to share, because I know this is where I want to dive a little deeper to give you more insights. I want to check with my audience here. Do you have a robust profile, or do you have a bare bones profile? Robust meaning that is fully optimized, or a bare bones skeleton profile where you're really just getting started, where you just have like your job titles and your name and there. So I'm curious to hear from you. Do you have a robust profile or a bare bones profile there? So I'm going to share some tips on really optimizing your profile there. So tip number one is to really have a 100% complete profile. I want a kick butt profile. I love that. Katrina, amazing, amazing. So you're in the right spot right now. I'm going to be showing you some tips on how to have a kick butt profile here. So number one is to have a 100% complete profile, because by doing that, you are 40 times more likely to get found and receive opportunities. Okay. Number two is that you want to have a professional profile picture. This is like the first thing people see when I saw a question asked, like, what do recruiters look like when they're doing search? One of the first things is your name, your picture, and your tagline. So you want to have an eye-catching picture as well. And here's a free tool called pfpmaker.com that you can use to take like a selfie picture of yourself. This is one I did last year, like with the pandemic, I couldn't get photography done. So I took my own picture, went to this website, and it has an amazing background that you can add. And it's eye-catching there. So that's the second piece there. Number three is to have a customized background photo. This is part of a personal branding where you can really showcase a bit of your style of what you're known for. So here are just even some templates. You can find these templates free on Canva as well. They have LinkedIn banners, LinkedIn templates that you can find one that works for you. And it could be as simple as adding like your area of expertise. So here, for example, one of my clients is like digital transformation. Like that's his domain there. Right? Another one here, it could just be a picture you like with your value proposition. It doesn't matter. Whatever you feel it is, it's just part of your branding of how you want to showcase you there. Number four is to have a catchy headline. Catchy headline. This is so important. Okay. If people don't click on your profile and they only see your name, your picture, your headline, it's the next thing you want to really optimize so that you can really pique their interest to click on further. Okay, so here's my quick rule of thumb tip here. And this is from my experience as a recruiter who's done like tons of searches for like a decade here is number one, I say is have your job title, which by default, if you don't do anything, is your job title in your company name. So that's the job title here, because that's how recruiters typically search. Next is have 3 keywords. So 3 keywords, which is really think of keywords that people would use to search for your area of expertise. So for example, if you're a marketing manager, your area of expertise could be content marketing, digital marketing, and video marketing, for example. And then you add in a value prop statement. So this is what I call almost like a benefit statement of what you bring to the table. Like what are the benefits of hiring you? When you're able to do that, it really showcases more of the value that you bring there. Okay. Or it could be like an accomplishment statement as well. Okay. So as an example, here's one. It is hard to read, but I'll read it to you here. Like one of my former client, Julia, she was a senior global brand communications marketer. And she has here, I strategize and bring to life consumer-centric marketing experiences that drive business growth. That's the value prop. And then her keyword would be digital strategy. And then she's also a professor of online market research. Okay. She used to have her own business, like her own marketing agency, and she really wanted to pivot into a corporate role. And so we had to add in more of these keywords in there. Okay. So that's like an example there. Number 5, this is still relatively new, is having a video cover story. I'm curious to hear from any of you whether you have a video cover story. It came out just last year, about a year ago. It's a 30-second video that you can just create from your phone. And think of it as an extension of your brand as well, where you introduce a little bit of yourself, showcase more of your personality of who you are, and then have a call to action, invite them to connect with you there. Okay, so this is a great way to stand out, whether you're a job seeker or an entrepreneur or someone who wants to build their brand. This is really bringing your profile to life, showcasing who you are. Okay, so let me know if you plan on doing this. I can tell you it's a game changer. I've actually had a lot more leads, a lot more building, like grown my network as well the past year, just because of this video that really just showcases more who I am, what problems I solve, and with a call to action there. Okay, so
we do have people we have people writing in the chat saying that they do have the video cover story.
Oh, good, good. Thumbs up. Okay, feel free to share your profile on that, some samples, because one of the challenge I hear is showcasing their face on camera or being camera shy, right? And I know it's something hard to do. And I'll tell you, I did something when I recorded this last year. It took quite some time for me to record as well. So my advice is first to go back to thinking about who's your audience, what's your brand, write out your script of what you want to say, rehearse it, then record it. And if it's longer than 30 seconds, it's okay because you can edit it out as well. Like I had a 1 minute version and I edited to a 30-second version. So it's totally okay there. As long as you have editing tools, you can totally make it down to 30 seconds there. And for those who's wondering how many words is that, one of my client who is in video, she said pretty much every 3 words is 1 second. So to get a 30-second video, it's about 90 words there. Okay, so within 90 words. Okay. This is good. All right, I'm going to move on to a few more tips here. The next one is having an authentic bio summary. This is so key. This is what I call like your premium real estate space, right? After your about, this is your bio section, even before your experience section. I feel like a lot of times this is underutilized. Either people may just have a short paragraph of what they have from their resume, or just something very dry. And I feel like if you can infuse your personality, add in your strengths, tell a little bit about your story, add in some of your accomplishments and keywords, it can be very, very interesting and it can be a conversation starter. My rule of thumb, the way I like to think about it, I'm thinking as a recruiter, if you want to get found, like your goal is if you want to be searchable, okay? If your goal is you want to be searchable, you need to think strategically, what are your top 3 keywords that you want to sprinkle throughout your profile? Right. So going back to that example, let's just say marketing, and you want to be known for video marketing, digital marketing, content marketing. You want to make sure those 3 keywords are in there and you elaborate further of what that means, right? Of what kind of expertise that you really have there. Okay. So that's really going to help to make it more interesting. And then add in a bit of a personal story of who you are, a little bit of your story or a little bit of your upbringing. I had a client yesterday, like he is like a data scientist, a really nerdy guy, like machine learning, AI, that's who he is. And I love, like you told me, like he's highly analytical, but he also brought in a bit of personality where he talks about how he's a dog lover and he talks about, you know, what he does on the weekend with his dog. And I love that because for those who are dog lovers, they can relate to that as well there too, right? So the goal here is you want to bring in what they call a balance of credibility statements and warmth statements. So meaning the personal, not professional side, like one that could evoke a bit of emotion, the personal side for people to relate, and then the expertise piece for credibility there. Does this make sense? If this makes sense, give me a +1 in the chat there.
Makes a lot of sense. And I love your tips because it's you know, definitely, I think everyone's going to go back to your LinkedIn after this conversation and just watch this again and start over maybe. And actually we've got Katrina wants to hop off mute, but I wanted to see if you have any more tips to go through, Diana, before I invite her to hop off mute.
Yes, I have a couple more tips here, if that's okay for me to finish this part. Yeah, I'll finish this and we'll move to the next part. Okay, so once you have the about, the next is the features. So this is another newer type of thing that came out last year, the feature section, which is really an opportunity for you to showcase more of your work. This could be your top like post, like that's what I do. It could be your awards and recognition. Testimonials is a good one because a lot of times testimonials is buried in the bottom. So even this year, like I brought up like a PDF document of like my 10 best testimonials and I add it into the feature section. And that's a great way when people are just scrolling through the phone that they'll see some of your testimonials out there. You can add certificates, like anything that you've completed. This is another great way, like a branding standout feature that is also underutilized there. Okay, so to think of this like almost like your media section or a bit of that website that to showcase a little bit of your portfolio there. Okay, and then just a couple more here. Next, once you're done this, is the experience section. So this is really showcasing your work experience. You don't have to highlight every single role that you've had. Okay. Really, what most people tend to look at is the last 5 to 7 years. So that's the most important, is to really highlighting that. One thing that I've seen more people doing the last several years, besides just having a job title, like your default job title, you can have either a bracket or hyphen to elaborate a little further of what your role entails to make it more interesting. So getting a bit more specific, because when people are just skimming through a profile, they may not see all the details in your experience section. So if they're just skimming through, you want to think of what your headline statement would be in that title section itself there. Okay. So this could also be a game changer for you. Like I did some optimization on my profile this year. Like I'll give you that example about that global speaker. That simple tweak, I literally added an experience session, highlighting myself as a global speaker and the type of talks that I do, the type of organization I serve. it's really helped get me more of those type of opportunities. So think of what do you want to attract and what you're going to put out there that's going to attract more of that there. So as an example, I have a client who has been in automotive for 20 years, but he doesn't want to be in that industry anymore. He wants to pivot into real estate. And he actually has been doing some real estate development on the side. And it's like, well, highlight more of that because that's going to be the latest experience of what people see. And so the people are going to connect that you've started been doing that the last several years as well. Okay, so that's a strategy for those who want to pivot, highlight more of those things that you want to move into there. Okay. Okay, and then two more here is number 9 is the relevant skills. This is another searchability function that if you want to get found, there's maximum 50 skills that you can highlight. Really think about the top 3 because that's what's being featured on your LinkedIn. What's the top 3 you want to be known for, as that's going to impact searchability there. Okay. And then lastly, recommendations. This is the testimonials. I highly recommend if you want to showcase your active or more recent profile, get 3 to 5 recommendations from your former colleagues, bosses, people that you've worked with that can really highlight more about you, okay? Because that is the social proof. All this is going to elevate what? Your marketability, credibility, and visibility there by optimizing these profile, okay? Was that helpful? The 10 tips to optimize your profile?
Oh my goodness gracious. I got a lot of work to do as well as everyone here. I'm seeing nods and just, lots of chatter in the chat box. So thank you all for sticking around for all these amazing tips. Thank you so much for sharing, Diana. And it's great to hear your lived experience as well. Katrina wanted to ask a quick question. So I'm going to give you permission to hop off mute. Go ahead and let us know what your question is.
Hi, I thank you for giving me this time. I am transitioning from like server bartending world into a UX design career, and I have taken a boot camp and I've done projects, but I haven't really been paid for my experience. So I was just wondering, what's the best way to show that I have done these projects, but they're not paid? And do I need to say like that should I say that I'm a beginner or that I'm transitioning or that I'm like, this is my first year? Are those things that I need to like be clear about on my portfolio or my profile?
Yeah. First of all, Trina, thank you for this question. I want to acknowledge you for making this pivot. The UX researcher, it's definitely in demand. I actually just had a client who made this huge pivot from being an entrepreneur to being a UX research manager, made a huge pivot. And so the question is around, I think around positioning and how do I really convey in terms of level of expertise there, right? I know in this field, having a portfolio is important. Mm-hmm. So even whether it's paid or not, it doesn't matter. To me, it's like, how are you going to tell the story of your case studies? Like what kind of projects you've done, whether through visual slides or through a website or whatever that is, like you want to showcase some of these portfolio of your work to showcase your thought process. So in your case, I highly recommend taking advantage of that feature section of having these different 3 or 5 projects that you can highlight, or you can also write LinkedIn articles of like 5 things I learned in UX research, or what are the trends, whatever that is, to showcase a little bit of your thought leadership essentially. Okay. And that's going to help you increase your credibility there. Okay. And then the other is if you've taken any certificates or training, bring that up, put that into your about section, put it in the feature section, whatever that is, you can highlight all of that in there because that's just going to give you more advertising space essentially to showcase like things that you've been doing to move into that area there. I know the portfolio one is key because my client just made that transition. Pretty much every interview he went, he had to showcase his portfolio.
Right.
Is that helpful?
Yeah. And then just, do you think that I should write that I'm like an entry level or a junior UX designer on like when people come to my LinkedIn and I'm trying to show them who I am in that brief little section, should I say junior UX designer or should I just say UX designer?
Yeah, well, I mean, your experience is going to reflect that, right? Even if you just have UX designer, your amount of experience would already reflect that. So you don't necessarily have to put junior, I would say, even if you just put UX designer there, your years of experience is already going to be able to reflect that by what you showcase in terms of your experience out there.
Okay.
Yeah. And for those who are making pivots, I'm going to give this tip for anyone who is making a pivot as well. even though you may not have experience, you can, part of your tagline could be transitioning into or pivoting into or aspiring UX designer. That could be part of that storyboard that what you're trying to tell people, that you're in this transition as well, and what you've been doing to make this successful transition there.
I'm happy you leaned into that, because there were some questions earlier about, if I'm transitioning or if I have a career gap. So I'm happy that you are that you can also share from your lived experience, from the work that you've been doing with certain clients and seeing them be successful in this transition. Lots of folks are transitioning careers. There's so much opportunity. And actually, this is a great segue into this next question here. What is the first thing recruiters see when they look at our profile?
Oh, good question. And we can talk about this whole transition. I have so many stories. So when a recruiter searches, right, let's just think of, and you guys can all do this as an experiment as well on your phone, is if you type in, let's say, UX research as an example, what do you see? That's really what recruiters see. So typically they would see the profiles of the picture, the name, and the tagline. That's all they see. And so really that first impression, your tagline is actually really important. If they don't see anything, what's the story of your tagline that will actually get them to click further? Right? That's really your goal here. It's like, what will get them to click further? So this is a hook statement enticed to get them to be interested in learning more about you there. Right? So even when I was a recruiter, I'll tell you this, like, well, usually I'll type in the keyword of what I'm looking for, and I'll go through probably the first 10 pages, like 100 plus type of profiles, right? If it's interesting, then I'll click on it to read further. If not, I'll just skip through it as well there, right? So to me, this is why it's so important to be thoughtful, thinking of from a marketing standpoint and thinking from an employer standpoint of what do they care about there, right? What kind of problems can you help them solve? I'll give you an example. I had another client who made a big pivot from nonprofit in the education sector to tech, and she moved into Amazon as a technical program manager. And the way she connected, like, because of her background was in STEM education, like promoting STEM education to youth, to like high school students. And her new job essentially was welcoming like engineers to the company there. And so we had to really work on like, what is essentially the transferable skills? What are those keywords that will connect her to that? And through her research, she also knew that she had to up her technical knowledge, like the cloud knowledge, learning more about the AWS type of products and all that. Like, that's more like a learning thing that you just have to do from a research. But you want to be able to showcase essentially the connection here is your passion for helping people grow, right? To grow and develop. Part of the job is onboarding and teaching and educating, and then bringing her experience around that and her master's of education in that there. So you really want to think about like, what would be relevant and what would be helpful to showcase that fit.
I love that. Thank you so much again for bringing up some, lived experience so that people can say this can happen, because I know it's so helpful to hear. Exactly. So I really appreciate you bringing in these examples. All right, so let's get into networking. We've got about 15 more minutes left, so just want to let everyone know that. Keep writing things in the chat. Continue to click around on folks who have dropped their LinkedIns or their preferred ways of connecting, because we got 15 more minutes left. So diving into networking, this question reads, what networking tips would you offer on the LinkedIn platform to make my personal brand more visible?
Oh, this is such a good one, right? And so to me, LinkedIn is such a powerful platform to build your network, right? I really love it to build a network. So what are some things that I would recommend doing? A few things here. I'm going to share with you some tips. Number one is to have a goal, build your network to even over 500 connections, because that's also going to help with search to get the opportunities as well. My guiding principle is always thinking about always be connecting, always be curious, always be cultivating. Right. So it's all about discovering what you can do for others. It's when you're first meeting someone for the first time, it's not about trying to pitch yourself. It's really think of an open dialogue of a conversation there. So you really want to send some personalized invites and messages, right? Have an outreach message of like, what's your reason for reaching out? Give an acknowledgement. Like if you have been following the work or you like their profile, give an acknowledgement, right? And then have a call to action of what's next here. Like, do you have a question for them or whatever it is? Keep it short and simple. Okay. Now, here's the thing. If you are reaching out to people who, let's say, have a very big network already, don't take it personally if they don't respond back right away. I actually just wrote a post about this morning, is that back in May, I had multiple live streams, multiple talks, and the launch of my LinkedIn course. My inbox was flooded with hundreds of messages. And I just realized last night there were messages I forgot to respond. And don't take that personally. Like I was just responding back like yesterday. I was like, oh my God, it's almost 2 months now. But keep doing it other ways. Besides, let's just say sending the DM, it could be commenting on their posts. That's another great way to get noticed there, or sending them an email, or move on to another social media channel. Like for me, Instagram is not as busy there, less crowded. That's another way to get in to talk to someone there. So that's another tip. There, right? So start that dialogue, ask open-ended questions. I find from my experience the last few years, because I'm very active in, it's best, instead of having a list of 10 questions for someone, is to ask one question at a time. So you're just having a conversation, a back and forth conversation. Or I have some people who are very clever. They'll have a question and give me an ABC response. Right? Like, what should I dress for my interview? A, B, or C? And so it's a way for someone to just quickly respond for those who are really busy there. So you can think of creative ways that way to get people to respond there. Really focusing on building relationships, discover what you can do for others. I'm really big on this. So as an example here, it's really thinking about how you can make more introductions of paying it forward. So as an example, like I'll make introductions for clients to, let's say, to recruiters or people I know who are hiring. Or as an example, this opportunity, Power to Fly, previous speaker, Lorraine K. Lee, like she introduced me to Power to Fly. And it's because of our relationship on LinkedIn that we had. And that's how we got connected. So it's all about discovering what you can do for others. And it's those little things like sharing an article, sharing a post. I thought of you when I was reading this. People always appreciate that. Give you an example. Last summer, I went camping for the first time and I made an announcement about it on my live stream. I had a couple people who listened in, sent me articles and tips of what to pack, where to go, all that. I'm so grateful. I remember these folks because it's so rare, but that's how you also start a conversation and start a dialogue there. Okay. So lastly here is engage in people's content. So my friend Austin, he talks about how content creation is networking at scale. So meaning as you start creating more content, you're going to have people who are not in your first or second level network who get to know you there, right? So that's also how you get to know people. And so start by just commenting on their post, right? Whether it's acknowledgement, adding your perspective, sharing with others, guarantee people will notice you. Like I have a few people I just met recently, and they've been very consistent in commenting on my posts. And from that led to a private DM conversation there. That I know eventually is going to lead to like a Zoom call type of meeting. So it's these little touch points that you want to essentially plant seeds and nurture network to essentially give that positive impression. It's like you are deposited into the relationship bank account that you would want to deepen those relationships. So I'll give you an example to take it a step further. I'm organizing a summer social lunch in Toronto here next Friday. And essentially the whole purpose is bring your online connections into real life. And so I have people I've never met in real life before, where I've just talked to them on LinkedIn the last few years, and a bunch of them are coming together. We're meeting in real life there. And so when you think about that, the chain of networking here is from what? Initial LinkedIn post to a DM, to a Zoom call, to now a lunch type of meeting. And to some who've become my friends now where we actually hang out. That's the power of networking. So my challenge for all of you, if you are serious about building your LinkedIn, is what? Optimize your LinkedIn profile, build your network to 500 plus connections, and then be active on LinkedIn, right? I'm seeing here, Mary said, learning so many things. It's so cool.
Yes. And again, bringing your lived experience. I'm sure it's going to be so much fun just getting to meet people in person, because I also have a huge desire to meet a lot of folks that over the past several years, because I've been working remote for a while, whenever I get to meet people in person, it's beautiful. So, and I can see how that chain of events happens, and kudos to you. And this is just, shouting out to folks who want to take their relationships outside of the computer, it can happen, right? And Diana is showing us that it's real. I think I might know the answer to this question, but I'm going to bring it up just in case we have, some folks who have their heads down and are like, really one directional here. This question reads, do we have to connect only with people that are in the same industry as we are in, or is it important to connect with other industries?
No. You can meet with anyone. Now, obviously, I can see there's benefits of staying focused, of meeting people in your own industry, right? A lot of times people may just meet people from their company and their industry. You could start off that way. If you are looking to pivot, or you're looking to start your own business, it's really important to meet people in a variety of industries. Now, mind you, you can definitely have what I call a criteria of the type of, let's say, profiles or people you want to meet. This is very similar to recruiting, right? It's really understanding, let's say, for me, like I love also meeting fellow coaches, fellow speakers. Like that's one bucket of people a group of people I love meeting as well, because we can exchange best practices or be on each other's like live stream shows. And another group of people are really, for me, it's like mid to senior level professionals and executives who are in this career transition and looking for help there, right? So those are the people I know I would want to meet there. Right. So it's also setting that criteria, what kind of people you want to meet that you can help, that could also add for you to add value to help them there. Okay. But the key is also having that open mind, right? I think a big part is having an open mind. Like over the last 2 years of the pandemic, I have to tell you, like I've really grown my network from like North America to India, Singapore, UK, Africa, like all over the world, because of just being active on LinkedIn. It's very global network that I have built now.
I love that. And I love that you're giving, actionable tips on how to make those relationships even more intentional, more meaningful, because as you said, sometimes things get, flooded, right? You get lots of things in your inbox, or, all of a sudden, there's this big call to action on diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging. And then, everyone is like crawling the interwaves to try to, find people and get people and match people and have conversations. So I know that it can be overwhelming, everyone, but as Diana is saying, bring those relationships into a deeper connection. And she's giving you, straight up tips on how to do that. And I really appreciate that. So we've got about 7 minutes left. And I really want to get into this last question here as it relates to content creation, because I know that a lot of folks are like, what do? I don't want to put myself on camera. I'm not a writer. I'm an introvert. I prefer to, like all of these, variables. So this question reads, what tips can you give to create great content that resonates with your audience and builds relationships?
Oh, this is such a great question. Okay, I want to quickly talk about this relationship piece first. For those who are just taking with us networking piece, if you're meeting someone new for the first time, here are my 3 principles. One is ask questions, right? Because that's how you spark conversation, by showing curiosity. Second is acknowledgement, right? Going back to compliment, giving kind words. Third is add value, right? Paying it forward, sharing something, whatever that is. These are 3 practical tips. I literally just shared this with another client the other day because he was telling me I'm new to a job and I'm just focused on my job right now, but I know I need to build my network there. So those are 3 advice. Back to this content piece, right? So for those who are looking to create content, type in a +1. I want to know who's interested in creating content here. I want to offer you some practical steps to think about. My friend, Lorraine K. Lee, she has over 300,000 people following her. And one of her style of content creation is called tip of the day. So she'll create like a short 1 to 2 minute video with tip of the day there. So think of something that really works well for you is to, first of all, is think about like, what is your purpose of creating content? Why are you creating it? Right? Is it to build your brand, your credibility? Is it to generate leads? Whatever it is. I know a lot of you are job seekers. You don't necessarily have to be like a 24/7 content creator. If your goal is to try to build credibility, my advice is to create 3 like LinkedIn articles. One could be about your story. Another could be your area of expertise of what you're learning. A third could be like a case study, a project or something, whatever that is, to tell your story. I had a client last year who finished his MBA and his expertise in digital marketing, but he has not written 1 post at all in years. I'm like, how can you be a digital marketer, advertiser without any content? He wrote 3 articles and got over a dozen interview opportunities. So for those who are just starting, write 3 articles, okay? And have some posts that you could share, okay? So step 2, knowing your audience. Who are you writing it for? right? If you're trying to get opportunities, think about what are their pain points, what do they care about, and that's going to give you some content ideas there. 3 is identify your top 5 areas that you're interested in talking about. Okay, so you got to do a little brainstorm about that. So you know how I talked about, I know mine is career transition, branding, interviews, networking, salary negotiation. These are things I want to talk about. Right? So going back to what you want to be known for. Then you think of research popular hashtags to use. Right? This is going to help essentially searchability, the findability there. Right? So go look for those hashtags. You can Google like most popular hashtags on LinkedIn, and you'll have like a list. Okay, so and then create like a spreadsheet that you can use these hashtags over and over. Next is think of your tone of voice and communication style. So this goes back to personal branding. What do you want to be known for? For me, I know I like to have this empowering, upbeat tone of voice. So a lot of things you see, whether it's through video or written content, it has a bit of that encouragement tone to it. That's my spin. Even my VA knows it. My virtual assistant, who sometimes helped me write, he knows that. So the way he thinks about my brain is also like Diana, someone who wants to have an encouraging tone of voice there. Okay. So a quick case study from a client of mine, Max Chan. This was a client of mine. He started writing in May 2020 with only 600 followers, and then he grew it to over 21,000 following. This was just beginning of this year. His content last year has like 4 million content views. And he started as a side hustle, essentially becoming a career coach as well, offering career advice for younger professionals there. And then since then, he started his own podcast, and he has his own side business as well as a resume writer. And so this is what I talk about, the power of content creation. Is like networking at scale, getting new opportunities, building your brand and credibility there. Okay, identifying the type of content to write. Right. So you know how we talk about topics, but here it's like, what kind of content do you write? Is it how-to advice, key learnings, stories, announcements, industry news, whatever it is, brainstorm that. Okay. The best ones usually I would say are personal stories, right? Because no one else can copy that content. It's you, personal stories. And then the other would be the how-to best advice type of posts. Okay. Those are the ones that I see that usually perform the best there. Okay. Then you brainstorm what to write, right? You got your topics, but now specifically it's like, what do you want to write? So think of like common mistakes, how to do this, whatever it is. Sometimes I'll tell you, like after a talk that I do like today, I usually go create another few more videos, like 5 or 6 videos based on the questions you guys ask me. I'll create a short 1-minute video and we'll start posting it as well. It doesn't have to be polished, but it's like, hey, this is what I thought. Like, this is what people want to learn about. And then you share it there. Okay. There's this trend now that you don't necessarily need to have very super polished content, like meaning where it has to be high production quality. Like, yes, there's value in that. But I think these days with the tools that we have with your phone, you can easily create like a 1-minute type of video there. Okay, I'm wrapping up here soon here. Step 8 is to identify your content delivery method. So this is, I know, getting a bit more technical, but it's thinking, what's your preference, right? Is it text? Is it image? Is it carousel, article, videos? You name it. There's so many options. The easiest is text to start because you don't have to create anything. I'm a brand marketer, so I like design. So you'll see a lot of my posts has these images, carousel, pictures of me. That's just part of my brand, but you don't have to do that. If you just want to keep it simple, text is the first step to go there. The second last step here is block time to create. Last year, pretty much every morning after I dropped off my kids from school, I would spend 30 minutes writing and I post. And the way I did it was I would have a theme of the week based on whatever content video live streams I'm doing, and then I'll write content leading up to that for my live stream there. That's how I got my inspiration there. Some people like to write months in advance. I'm working towards that. I'm working towards a 1 week in advance, but I'm still on that daily type of what works for me there. I'm usually inspired by things. So that has worked well for me. Okay. So everyone is different. And then lastly is knowing your message. Like, what's your message of this piece of content? Is it whatever call to action, a key lesson? I'm really big on lessons learned. Like whenever I share about even a client win, I'll talk about the challenges and struggles, and then I'll have a lesson learned to inspire people out there. right? So whatever works for you. There. So I hope this is helpful. Was this helpful? Giving me a +1. If this is helpful, I walked through the 10 steps of creating content here.
Yes. +1s, digital confetti, all the things. Diana, thank you so much. I'm also excited to see how you're going to share, your reflections after this meeting, because of course, an hour is not enough. You have a wealth of knowledge. Kudos to all the things you've been up to. Congratulations. Everyone, make sure you connect with Diana and don't take it personal if she takes a while, because clearly she's got a lot to say and a lot of people who are getting in touch with her. Diana, I would love to just give you the final words. I know that we're just, a couple minutes over time. Thank you so much. But how can people connect with you? Please remind us.
Yeah, absolutely. So please follow me here on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Instagram. Feel free to send me a DM message as well on LinkedIn or on Instagram because it's less crowded. Come on over to my website at mymarkability.com there /resources here. You can get all these free resources, and you also join my mailing list for some of the latest events that I'll be doing in the upcoming months. Yay. Well, I love the clap here. Thank you, Katrina, because I see you right in front of me. Thank you.
We've got emoji claps and real claps happening on screen. And folks who are asking in the chat, yes, you will get a rewatch email with a link to this recorded video. So a lot of people are like, we want this. You will. And Diana's presentation will be included in the video as it is here now. Prezi, shout out to Prezi and Lorraine Lee. And everyone, good luck. I'm going to go hop over to LinkedIn and try to do at least 1 or 2 things that Diana just shared with us today. So I'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much, Diana. And thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Amazing. And if you're connected with me, let me know, what's one action item that you're going to be doing with up leveling your LinkedIn there. Okay. What's your one action item? And let me know through LinkedIn.
I love it. Accountability. It's great.
Yes.
All right, see you all later.